sure your microphones are muted, which so far looks good. And we will have chance for questions during the seminar. But if we don't get to them all, we will certainly respond to you, if not today, over the next couple of weeks, and at the latest in the next seminar in 2 weeks. So please put them in the chat box in the meantime. The Innovative Development Educational Academy is a free resource that we provide at Innovative Development for education, for records management, and information governance professionals. The continuing education credits for this program have been approved, so you can apply for them, and you will get a certificate. They will be for ARMA, AIM, and the ICRM, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. There'll be 5 individual courses, today being the first one, each an hour long, and will be hosted by Ray Davis. Now, some of you on this call, I know you know Ray, for better or for worse over the years. But
no lie about that.
Yeah, I know, and Ray, I know you know a lot of attendees. Ray has 30 years of experience in RIM and information governance. Professionally, primarily as an end user on the financial services industry with Commerce Bank a number of years back. Recently, Ray has joined Innovative Development as a principal consultant of RIM, assisting with clients in building successes each and every day. He's been doing these seminars, including a radio program, for 20 years now. So with that said, I will turn it over to Ray for today's presentation.
All right, Rich, thank you very much. And my screen is a full screen, so I can't see, but we are recording, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for IDEA, the Innovative Development Education Academy, and our first foray into educational offerings with our fall semester 2024 Records Management 101. And despite the fact it says Records Management 101, yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about basic records management, and we'll build from there. But that doesn't mean that we won't talk about current things that are happening within your programs today. We just want to approach it at a very basic level. At one point in time, I wanted to be a professional racquetball player. And of course, that didn't work out, and that's okay. I switched one R for another. I went from racquetball to records management. But what I knew, being a racquetball player and trying to get up to the professional level, is that the professionals are just performing the basics at a much higher level and a higher consistency than amateurs are. So it never hurts to go back to the basics, even if you've been around for a while. And if you are brand new to the profession and you're considering it as a career, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us. And as Rich said, today's class, class number 1, will be Where the Rubber Meets the Road.
Okay, let me.
Rich always has already gone over a little bit of this. IDEA is a free educational resource for records management and information governance. We're going to be doing individual webinars on specific topics, as well as multiple webinar series like we have today. Another way to get to us is to join our LinkedIn group. That address is on the screen right now. We'll be posting notices of the future classes, as well as any other educational offerings. And who knows, there might be some funny pictures posted about records management that I snagged from the internet, posted by other organizations and associations, just give you a little smile about our profession. So again, feel free to join us on LinkedIn, and just looking to give everybody a community that they can participate in. This is what our semester is going to look like as far as the schedule of events. We're starting today with Class 1, Where the Rubber Meets the Road. In 2 weeks, Class 2 will be the tools you'll need and use. Class 3 will be 2 weeks after that. It's not just about storing your records, it's can you get them back. The 4th class will be about the resources you need, both human and financial, And we'll finish up the semester with our 5th class, The Future of Records Management, where we not only look to see what's on the cutting edge now, but what could be coming well beyond that. All of our classes will be recorded. I was already contacted by a number of people who said, Ray, I'm not going to be able to attend this first class. I've got a meeting I can't get out of. I told them that's not a problem. All the classes will be recorded. At some point in time after this broadcast, you'll receive an email from us with a link to the recording as soon as it's posted. So if you like to listen to the recordings more than once, it'll be there. If you miss a class, you can always go back and check out the recording yourself. We're very happy to say that IDEA is partnering for continuing education credits for you. Anyone that's going through certificates with AIM, ARMA, or the ICRM, you'll be getting 5 continuing education credits, which AIM and ARMA call them CEUs, continuing education unit, or the ICRM calls them certification maintenance points. 1 point is being awarded for each class. So each one you watch, you get a point, and you can get a total of 5 continuing education credits. At the end of the semester, we're going to send you an email with a quick survey to fill out. Tell us, what did you like about this semester? What could have been added? What are your pain points? What topics are you looking for us to discuss that we didn't? And once you complete that survey, it'll just be a few questions. You'll have an opportunity to download your certificate. Now, obviously, I'm teaching the course. So yes, I awarded myself my own certificate on a date that doesn't exist yet. You'll be able to do the same. When the semester is over, just type in your name and your date that you're doing it, print it out, or save it as a PDF. And there's your proof of attending the classes and gaining those continuing education credits. As Rich said, I am the class host for the Innovative Development Education Academy. I joined Innovative Development a little while ago, and I'm a principal consultant for records and information management. I have over 30 years in the profession. The majority of it is an end user, but over the last few years have been working with solution providers, which I find very satisfying. I'm still engaging with end users and trying to find them solutions, and it makes me very happy when we can pull successes out of that. I've been a number of steps along the way. This is actually my 30th year with ARMA International as a member. I joined the ARMA Liberty Bell chapter shortly after joining ARMA. As Rich said, ARMA Pittsburgh and ARMA Liberty Bell merged in 2023. We are now the Keystone chapter, and I am the current president of the Keystone chapter. So there's a lot of different areas within records management I've been a part of, and we'll come across those as this presentation goes along, because there's a lot of sources out there for you to find information that you're looking for, and finding that sense of community, which I know records management is. Rich Slaughter is my co-host. He's also working with me here at Innovative Development. He's kind of giving you his background. Rich, is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on?
I think we're ready to go, Ray.
Okay. All right, we're going to use all the tools in the tool belt, and all of these classes and any of the webinars that we do. Whenever I can, I'll give you actual records management examples of how a situation has been solved, or things that we use during a particular situation. There'll be real life examples that I've lived over my time. You'll learn, those of you that have attended my webinars before, I'm a storyteller. If you don't have stories after 30 years, wow, you're not keeping track, and I got plenty of stories. We'll do analogies, some things that you won't even understand how they work, how they compare, how I could talk about records management in that. And I'll give you one right now, just as an example. A lot of us, we all eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe we don't eat all 3 of those meals every day, but we all eat food. Well, if you walk into a kitchen, you could be cooking and you could be baking, and they're 2 different things. If you're cooking, that's where you can improvise. If you want more salt, you want more pepper, maybe throw some oregano in there. How about some basil? You can do that. You have the ability to modify the recipe as you want, and it'll have the taste that you want. But if you're baking is an exact science. If you look at the recipe, you've got a certain number of ingredients. They're all portioned out the way they should be, and they have to be followed exactly in the order that they're given in the instructions, or what you bake won't come out properly. So some things in records management, you're going to be cooking. You can improvise. You can do things different way depending on your organization. And another word we'll use a lot, culture, because Commerce Bank was a culture, and a lot of organizations that I've associated with have cultures. But there are some things when you're baking, you got to follow it exactly. It's just not going to work right. Throughout these classes, we may do some online surveys, whether we do them in between classes and then discuss the surveys in the follow-up class, or because we're doing this live, we could actually do surveys online and have you participate right on screen with us, and we'll see the results in real time as they happen. And finally, case studies. Case studies are great. I just need to know that I have permission from the organization that created it and the companies that they did the case study with. So if we have those and I have those permissions, I'm more than willing to share those case studies. Again, just to give you another example of reinforcing why we're saying what we're saying and the successes that can come because of it. I do have to make a disclaimer before I go too much further. Ray loves to tell stories, and he's got a lot of them, but he can sometimes get off track. And that's another reason why Rich is here. If Rich sees me go off track and maybe I'm just cruising too long on a story, he's going to go, okay, Ray, time's running. We've got to bring it back, and he'll get me back where I need to go. And I guess finally, again, no shock for those that know me, but for those of you that don't, Ray loves to talk about himself in the third person, and he does so quite frequently. So I hope you don't mind about that. It's just easier to talk about me as somebody else. If you have a question during class, please remain muted on your microphone and just enter the question into the chat box. Rich will be monitoring that chat box, and he'll wait for the appropriate time to ask Ray the question. And as he said, depending on the time frame we've got or how complicated or how long that answer might be, we may get to that question during this class, or we will be addressing all of those questions and either get back to you before the next class starts or have it as a part of the beginning of the next class. So ask the questions you want in the chat box. We will get to them, if not today, then no later than the next class. Here's today's agenda for today. We're going to start by talking about the evolution of records management, records and information management, and information governance, because they're different. We're going to talk about the lines of separation, records management, information management, and data management. We're going to answer that question, what determines if something is a record? Another area which you'll need to be able to work with your organization on is telling them, what is the purpose of records management? We'll tell you. We're going to talk about the records management life cycle. Some people have done this in 3 steps. I've seen it as many as 8. And we'll talk about ours. And just to answer a question that got asked that Richard just texted me, to the individual that asked the question, is a certificate we are awarding you at the end of this semester a record? It is for you, and it's not for us. Thank you for asking. We'll continue on with where should records management report, because you'll find out a really weird place that records management reported into an organization at Commerce Bank that I've reported to, but it could be anywhere. And I don't think there's any one right answer. It all depends on your organization. We're going to hit the brakes after that and stop talking about records management itself and start to talk about you joining the world of records management and networking in records management, because I'm telling you, the records management profession and all the things that I've done in my career, it is the most giving profession I have ever been a part of. People are more than willing to help you wherever you need it. Ask a question, ask an opinion, and people will come back with an answer and get a great conversation going. So that's our agenda for today. Before we start, I want to start with a trivia question. From 2007 to 2020, I did my own internet radio talk show called Inside the Records Room. Though some of you might remember that, it was with a gentleman called Jeff Glover, and we were on the air every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And one of the segments we did was Inside the Records Room Goes to the Movies, where we took a movie, whether it's an older one like The Wizard of Oz or a brand new movie in the theaters, and we told you how you thought the movie was about this, but let me tell you the records management lessons that you got pulled from that movie. And we're going to do that today. We're going to answer the question, what is the connection between records management and the movie the Wizard of Oz? And we'll give you the answer to that before we end our class today. So let's get started with class one. And I want to tell you, enjoy the journey. A lot of people think it's about the destination. And yes, we have our eyes down the road, whether it's projects that we're trying to accomplish, things that, goals that are out there. But we need to understand that it's all about the journey. Every step along the way, what did we learn? What worked? What didn't? Because we may have to do this in the future, but enjoy the engagement with the people in your organization and the people that you meet along the way. They're great relationships, for today and for the future. And learning how to do what we do is just something that fascinates me each and every day. So I'm not planning to retire for quite some time. So my retirement destination is quite far off, but at least I hope it's quite far off. But I'm enjoying each and every day, including being here with you today. I'm really happy to be back on the air. So let's talk about the evolution of RM, RIM, and IG, commonly known as records management, records and information management, and information governance. First, records management. When I first got involved, that's all it was, records management. Here are your records. Here's the citation that shows the legal length of time you have to keep them. Follow the life cycle and either keep them permanently if that's what's needed, or destroy them at the end of the legal life. A number of years later, it was realized that there is a lot of other information that organizations are keeping, but they're non-records. But they're just cluttering things up. They're being kept forever, and that's not necessarily the best thing to do either. So it was decided that records management had the policies and the procedures and the disciplines of following the life cycle. So if all we needed to do was work with the end users to determine a retention life on information, or what we call non-records, then we could apply the same principles there to make sure that the records and information get destroyed when it should. And that's why we called it records and information management. And finally, information governance. And I say this all the time. I'm just saying it to be informational to you. There are some people that do not believe information governance is real. They believe that information governance is just records management under a fancy name. And for those people, if that's what they believe, that's all well and fine. There is also a percentage of people that believe information governance is real. The records management is a portion of information governance, and that information and records are looked at slightly differently. So I want to just go one by one. I love quotes and I love definitions because I don't have to reinvent something, and it gives you a source to go find it. I had to go back to the second edition of the Glossary of Records and Information Terms from Army International, because that was back when they called it records management. And they called that the systematic control of all records from their creation or receipt through their processing, distribution, organization, storage, and retrieval to their ultimate disposition. And then a number of years later, when it became records and information management, and I had to go to actually the 5th edition of the Glossary of Records and Information Terms for Army International. This is the current definition. Records and information management is the field of management responsible for establishing and implementing policies, systems, and procedures to capture, create, assess, distribute, use, store, secure, retrieve, and ensure disposition of an organization's records and information. So they made sure they put both of them in there. And then finally, information governance, and you'll see a huge difference in the definition of information governance. Information governance is considered a strategic cross-disciplinary framework composed of standards, processes, roles, and metrics that hold organizations accountable for the proper handling of information assets. The framework helps organizations achieve business objectives, facilitates compliance with external requirements, and minimize risk posed by substandard information handling practices. So an entire organization is involved with information governance. And now I will say, when I was running programs at Commerce Bank, and information governance wasn't around then, it came, towards the end of that, I actually had what I called a records management council, which today would be considered an information governance council. And I included all areas of the organization, audit, compliance, human resources, lending, mortgages, purchasing, IT. And I know I'm losing track of the ones I've already put up there. I even included my vendors because to run a proper information governance program and the records and information that are managed within it, I need everybody on the same page with me. So they also look at information as an asset that needs to be handled and protected properly. So that's why this definition is a little bit more intense than the previous two, but also shows that the whole organization is involved here and everybody plays a role, including records management. I want to talk about the lines of separation: records management, information management, and data management. Depending on your audience, records, information, and data may be used interchangeably by those people, that it means the same thing. But you will also have a group of people that realize that records, information, and data are separate things, and they have a lot of similarities. They have their own definitions, they have their own life cycles, they have their own policies, they have their own procedures, but they're different. So when you see someone saying records, information, and data all in the same conversation, just make sure you're on the same page. Do they believe they're talking about the same thing, or are they talking about three separate things? Because your answers may not be the same for the questions that come up. I'm not going to read each one of these. We already went over the one on the right, records management from ARMA. In the middle, ARMA International has their definition of information management, which clearly they define as a record or non-record. And then finally, data management from an association, DAMA International. They talk about their version of data management, and they also include enhance the value of data and information assets. So they're using data and information within the same quote as well. Again, you just need to understand with whoever you're talking to or whoever's talking with you, what do they mean by that? Using them interchangeably, or are they separate? The big question I get asked a lot, so I'll start with it here, is what determines if something is a record? And I'll tell you, it's one word, and that's content. It's not the format, it's the content. What is making up the content of what was sent to you, whether it was done on paper or electronically? And I'll give you some examples. Example number one, we have an email. I get an email from a coworker and they say, would you like to go to lunch? Okay, is that a record? Nope, that's not a record. That's just one employee asking another employee out to lunch. Do you want to go get lunch? There's no business transaction involved. There's nothing going beyond that. It stopped and started with, would you like to go to lunch? Example, email number two. Get a fellow employee that says, hey, I just bought a new car over the weekend. You should come out into the parking lot and check it out. Is that a record? As a records manager, not for me. It's their transaction, not mine. It's their car that they bought. I'm just going out into the parking lot and telling them, hey, this is a really cool car. I hope you enjoy it. Hope it works out exactly the way you want. But from my organization standpoint, that car, which belongs to them, is not a record. And finally, example number three, for email number three, in the body of the email, I accept the terms of the contract. The signed contract is attached. Hopefully you said yes. That is an email that not only has a document in it that's a contract that's signed, it's telling me it's a business transaction with the organization I work for. And now what I need to do is follow my company's policies and procedures. Do we take a snapshot of that email? Do we keep that email as a record of what happened? Do we leave the attachment in the email? The last thing we want to do, and I hope a lot of you would agree with me, is do not use email as a repository. But you're going to find a way. If you need to keep that, look at your policies and procedures and determine how you need to keep this as a record, because it is a record. You're documenting a business transaction for the organization that you work for, and the contract is in it. Now, There are sometimes reasons why it's done differently for other people than what I just said. So what I will tell you is if you work for the US federal government, you have something that you follow for email called Capstone. And I've seen Capstone, and in some ways, I think it's easier to manage email by Capstone. And basically, it's this. In Capstone, you have 3 levels of email retention. If you're a Capstone official, you're at the top of your organization, your emails are kept permanently. It doesn't matter what the content is. So if one coworker says, would you like to go to lunch? If you're a Capstone official, that email's kept permanently. The next level down are what they call non-Capstone officials, and their emails are kept for 7 years, regardless of content. And the third level is support and admin people who do not qualify under Capstone official or non-Capstone official. And those emails are kept for 3. So there is usually, some way around a particular rule that's treated differently for other people. This is one of those. So if you're in the US federal government, I didn't tell you something new. You've probably been filing Capstone for a long time. But for those people not in the US federal government, that may surprise you that those rules exist, but they do. And we just need to note them. So depending on what industry you're in, you need to make sure what rules apply to you and which ones are not in your industry that don't. I told you that it's about the content, it's not about the format. There are a number of physical record formats that we have records kept in each and every day. It could be paper, it could be photographs. Now think about this, 30 years ago, I don't even know when digital cameras were created, but we used to put a roll of film in a camera, take some pictures, take the roll to a place to get them developed, and we had physical photographs in our hand versus the digital photography had today, which we can get printed out. Quite frankly, I prefer digital photography. We also had those things which in banking was really helpful to me, and that was microfilm and microfiche. Microfilm, images brought down to a very tiny image, put on rolls of film that you feed into a machine, and you can scroll through, and the images come up on a bigger screen for you to read. Microfiche is the same thing, except they are rectangular pieces of film where you have rows and rows and rows of these small images, which you would put into a fiche reader and bring up the images that you're looking for. We deal with maps, we deal with blueprints and magnetic tape. These are all different physical record formats that we have to consider retaining. And we also have our electronic or digital record formats, whether that be word processing documents, spreadsheets, PDFs, emails, databases, websites, social media content, audio, video recordings, and digital photography. But I should have put emails in red. Email retention of records and email is a bone of contention of mine because email is not a repository. And it's extremely difficult to search. There's no way to apply retention. And that's what we need to do when we have our records, get them into a place where we can apply the retention to them. So if by chance any of you are storing records in email, let's try to find a way to put that on your list to develop a solution for that. Now, your end users who are working in your organization, they've got their own responsibilities to do. Records management is not their core responsibility. And what I've always said is if you can't overcome every objection by an end user, then chances are they're not going to buy into what you're selling, in this case, records management. So you need to have the answers. You need to understand, what is the purpose of records management? Well, first off, and the easiest one is legal compliance. If you're working with legal compliance, that means that you have the legal citation, and from there, you're applying that retention life to the particular record within your retention schedule, and then you're following the life cycle. And at the end of that life cycle, if the record is to be destroyed, you do that. As this class goes on in future classes, you'll find out that I didn't go to Commerce Bank to be a records manager. I went to run their purchasing program. But in doing that and then getting exposed to records management, I was able to apply purchasing principles to it. And I can tell you that records management is not a revenue generator. It never will. So there's no selling point to your organization to say, oh, we can make money doing records management. What you can do for your organization is cost savings, cost avoidance, those type of things. So, what type of boxes are you storing your physical records in? Because depending on the size box, there's a way to save money. If you follow your retention schedule and disposition is happening, meaning destruction, then you're freeing up space, whether that be physical space or electronic space, so you don't need to go out and buy more. So you're saving money by eliminating physical boxes in storage, so you're not paying for inventory space. And if you're doing it electronically, you're not buying new space on your network to store more records. You're eliminating old records that can be destroyed, which is making room for new records. Along with that, you're promoting operational efficiency, especially today in the current world, 2024. Using the wonders of modern technology and everything else that we have going, we have the ability to use technology and make people more efficient, following our program and our policies and procedures, and that makes us more operationally efficient. And if you're following your records management life cycle and you're destroying the records when you can, then that means you're managing the risk that your organization is exposed to. There's also the ability to manage that risk of making sure that only those people who should have access to your records get them, and making sure that the doors are locked, logons and passwords are in place so that no one from the outside can get in. Let's talk about the evolving records management landscape. 2024, these are the things that we've had to face over the last few years. When COVID hit in 2020, all of a sudden we weren't working in our offices anymore. We were working remotely. So we learned that we could work remotely. In the beginning, records managers were saying, well, how can I do this? People can't come to work. What are we going to do? And we found out very quickly that by working with our IT counterparts, that we can put in the right technology with the right access and the software, and making sure that everybody could log in from home in a safe environment into the system. By using technology, we have the ability to be faster. We have the ability to be more efficient, which makes everybody in the organization better, along with collaboration. The tools that we're using now, we're all in the same document. We're working together, or we're able to share those documents. We're able to share access, and the collaboration that happens because of this is just monumental in our success. Now, cloud solutions, that's obviously not something that's new. In fact, I saw a cartoon the other day on LinkedIn. I was going to put it in the presentation. I thought, no, I better not. It was Lawrence Fishburne, who's an actor, he was on the slide, and it just said, your records are in the cloud. That just means they're on somebody else's computer. And I laughed because it breaks it down to the essence. It breaks it down to exactly where you need to be. If somebody goes, what's a cloud? It just means your record's on somebody else's computer. Now, it's a lot deeper than that. How do you access that computer? How do you get those records there? That's another story for another class. But cloud solutions are evolving, and how we get there. Is it your own personal cloud? Is it the vendor's cloud? And we'll also talk about where is that cloud, because where that cloud is needs to be important to you. Artificial intelligence, and excuse me, because I have to cough. Excuse me. Artificial intelligence, it's been around for a while. It gained prominence really fast a few years ago with things like ChatGPT, Bard AI, which is now Gemini, and a number of other offerings out there. But the bottom line is, how is artificial intelligence valuable to you in records management? If you're an end user, are your vendors using artificial intelligence? How are they doing that? Why are they doing that? What are the good things that come from it? So I know we hear all those scary stories about artificial intelligence and the robots are going to take over the world. What I'm going to tell you is not all AI is bad. You do have to be careful on what you do. We'll talk about that in future classes, but that's ever evolving all the time. I can't tell you the number of presentation invitations I get day after day to my inbox, and a lot of them deal with artificial intelligence and I got to keep myself up to speed. So I will be attending some of those to educate myself and understand the value of artificial intelligence, how I can apply it. And I encourage you to do the same. And obviously, the last bullet point, privacy. Privacy is big time now. Started out as GDPR. It's now in several states within the United States, which scares me because when you get individual states that are writing their own privacy laws, if you happen to be a company that sells in all these different states, you have to be in compliance with each individual state. So it's something you have to be aware of. You have to eliminate your records when you're told to from a privacy standpoint. So we definitely have to keep that on our minds in this current landscape of records management. Again, educating our end users that we need to talk to. There's a lot of benefits of records management. I'm beyond thinking we're going to get to the paperless society. We'll get to the less paper society, but not the paperless society. Again, we've talked about it. There's some approved efficiencies with records management. You know where your records are, you know where they're stored, you know who's responsible for them, and you're following the records life cycle. There's increased productivity because you have the policies and procedures that you're using to guide you in managing those records through the life cycle. And when you're using technology, which are the tools, they're allowing we as human beings to be more efficient because we're allowing technology to take over some of those redundant things that we no longer have to do now because technology can do it for us. And you'll see two things in red, access and security. There are benefits of records management, there's no doubt. Physical records management, you can lose the chain of command. And we definitely could when I worked at Commerce because we had a number of locations all the way up and down the East Coast by the time we were done. So when we were having, physical folders and boxes delivered, we had to rely on a vendor driver to get them to the right person who would sign off on it and make sure those records were protected. You're now hearing a little bit of silence from me now because that means that may have been happening, but it may not. And I can't be sitting in New Jersey and verify that that's being followed in Florida or Georgia or Virginia, all the way up and down the East Coast. Security to records, same thing. What vehicles are they being transported in if they're physical records? But you can instill a level of security both from who can access it and for our friends in the government, making sure those with the different security levels, whether it be secret or top secret, make sure that those records are protected and only viewable by those people who have those clearances to do so. So they're a benefit of records management, access and security, but you'll also know that they're part of the challenges. Again, who's working for your organization? How are you determining who has access to it? If that person leaves, how do you know? If a access is compromised, how quickly can you figure it out? What tools do you have in place that can say, you know what, I think we have a problem here? In the U.S. federal government, there's a program or there's a thought process called zero trust, which is basically, you're saying we have to act like we have to prove everything. We just can't take everything at face value. And I know I just simplified that. So for the people, our listeners in the U.S. government, I didn't need to simplify that further than you wanted me to, but that's just kind of the really quick, short thing is you have to realize, or you have to expect that, they have to prove each and everything. Same thing with security. How do we make sure that the access is updated so only those people should see those records do see those records? Organizational acceptance. I'll be the first one to tell you, I love records. Over 30 years, I still love records. Love doing what I'm doing, wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But I can understand how my fellow employees around the organization don't get that same fascination about records management that I do. So when I ask them to comply with what we need done, I know that I'm going to get pushback. I'm not going to get the level of organizational acceptance I need because they have their own core responsibilities. So I need to communicate with them on the level that they want. And a lot of times it's face-to-face, voice-to-voice. Thankfully, virtually, we've got Teams, we've got Zoom, we've got whatever your virtual platform is. So if you're not in the same room, you can be on the same computer. I can see you, you can see me, and we can talk. And when you get people talking and you have the ability to tell the story, then you have the ability to start gaining trust and organizational acceptance. Integration is another key. How many line of business systems do you have in your organization? Do you have a human resources line of business system? Do you have a payroll line of business systems? I could keep going. I've been a part of an organization where we interviewed a client who had over 100 line of business systems. Could they all be integrated? Not together. We could integrate them through a records management system. Just had to find the right one. And then governance and compliance. Think about information governance. Think about bringing the whole organization together. There's legislation and regulations that we have to follow, and there needs to be a governance and compliance wrapped around your program to make sure that's happening. And while I haven't seen any local case studies or case studies lately, they always used to predict the volume increases each and every year, as well as more formats that were coming out that had to be supported for the records that we're retaining. So these are some of the challenges that you're going to have to overcome. Okay, where should records management report in your organization? I'll go to the middle of the chart. I went to Commerce Bank to run their purchasing department, and records management reported the purchasing, and purchasing reported to accounting. So is that where records management really should report? No, not necessarily. It just worked for Commerce Bank, but that's definitely not the path I would suggest taking. It just happened to work for us. Should the legal area be where records management reports? Well, when you think about litigation holds and policies and procedures needing to be approved, maybe for your organization, the legal department could be the right area. How about information technology? I mean, I had somebody say to me a few months ago, you know what? We just sort of be a part of information technology, because if they need software, they just put it in the budget and it gets approved. But if records management needs new software, sorry, denied. But if you put records management software in the information technology budget, they probably won't realize it and it'll be approved. Obviously, that was a little bit of sarcasm from that person that was talking to me, but they clearly thought about it. They thought, what I heard when they said that is records management is not being taken as seriously in this organization as it should, but information technology is. So we need to go a different route. I would also say to that person, as well as each of you, that you are the champion of records management. You have to keep telling the story. You have to keep pushing the importance of records management and tell the good things that can happen if you perform records management. Sometimes you have to tell the negative stories. When I was at Commerce Bank, I used to end my presentations with scary stories about fines and jail time can be provided if needed. Should I have ended a presentation like that? It's not the most positive way to end a presentation, but it made a few people sit up. I'd rather just have you and me and other records management professionals just create that list of positive things that can come from doing records management and what it can do for the organization, your end users, the people that are working within your organization, and your customers, and show how it protects the organization and get a positive buy-in that way. There are some organizations that have a generic term called operations. Records management might get dumped into operations. They have no idea. But again, there's other areas where records management could report. These are just a few, but I'll tell you, it depends on your organization. What industry are you in? What size organization? Are you a small organization, mid-size, large? That'll really dictate the answer. I mentioned it earlier, the records management lifecycle. I've seen it as few as 3 steps and as many as 8. I prefer it in 5, and we'll go over each of the 5 now. First, create and receive. Are you the creator of the record, or did somebody else create it and you received it and now you're going to use it? So then once you answer that question, it brings forth another question. What do you do with the record once you're done with it? Is it stay with you, so you store it in a particular place where you're supposed to? And is it documented where you store it? And if you send the record on to somebody else, do you document who you sent it to? That'll be used in something we call a records inventory, and we'll talk about that in class 2. Use or modify. The record's been received. You need to document the way you use that record while it's in your possession. If you're going to modify it in any way, you need to understand what changes you made. Do you want to keep the different versions of the record? How it looked before you made the changes, how it looked after you made the changes. And with that being said, do you have procedures that require you to document version control? I hear about version control a lot when it comes to agreements or contracts, because somebody will say, well, I changed that. Well, what term did you change? Oh, in version 3. Well, hopefully you have a copy of version 3 and you can see where they changed it. That's where the version control and knowing if you have version control will be helpful. If you don't have version control and somebody says, I changed that through the third pass, there's no way to prove they did or didn't. And then what is your plan to accomplish that? If legal says we need version control, how are you going to answer that? We move on to maintain and protect. All of the steps in the life cycle are important, but maintaining and protecting is just the level above for me. You need to make sure that you know where it's being stored so you have access to it when you need it, but you also need to make sure the proper security is in place so only those that should have access to it do. Other people within your organization who shouldn't see it never do, and no one from outside the organization can get to it. Dispose and destroy. This is where I talk about myself in the third person again. Ray isn't thrilled with the term dispose. I'm okay with disposition, but when you shorten it to dispose, that doesn't make me happy because I can dispose of a record. It's not necessarily destroyed. I went looking for the article earlier today. I couldn't find it. A couple weeks ago, there was an article posted on LinkedIn. I actually did make a copy of it. And it dealt with someone who came out of their organization to dump regular things into recycling and found paper records in a recycling bin. Well, those records should have been in a bin for shredding, if that's the way that you were going to do it, not into a recycling bin. So while they thought they had good intentions of putting paper records into a recycling bin, which could be recycled, they didn't destroy it, and therefore those records could have fallen into the wrong hand. So not a fan of dispose. I like destroy or destruction. When it comes to your program, make sure that you document the method and manner that destruction was completed, and also whether it's paper or electronic. Make sure that you know and document, that you have the proper confirmation for all of your records and how they have been destroyed or will be destroyed, and that you know it was done and when it was done and confirmation was done. So whether it's you documenting an in-house program or if you have a vendor doing that, make sure that there's some way that you have coverage to know that you can prove that it was done. This isn't a trick question. What is one of the most feared things to authorize? And that is destruction. It doesn't matter if you've proven that you've categorized your records properly and that they've gone through the life cycle, and by legal statute, you can destroy those records. People still have a problem letting go. They're just afraid to make a mistake. They just don't want to be wrong. And I get that. I 1000% get that. It falls under what I call the what if scenario. Well, what if we need these records 2 weeks from now? Or what if there's litigation a month from now? Well, again, let me address that second question. If you're following your retention schedule and there is no litigation whatsoever, and you can legally, by a statute, destroy that record, it's eligible for destruction and can be destroyed, and you destroy it, and a month later, you get a litigation notice, you have followed your retention schedule that had legal retention life, and you're fine. Those records, you can't get them back, but legally, you're okay. But there's a lot of, well, what if this and what if that? And you gotta stop playing the what if games, because what if usually never happens. So the recommendation is have a procedure for destruction, follow that procedure, and make sure that you audit the procedure. And that way, if it isn't being followed, it's noted in whoever's audits it happens in, and that will get destruction happening very quickly. And we end with the archive and preserve. Yes, there are some records that are kept for long periods of time up to permanently. You just need to make sure you take the steps to maintain the electronic records in their current format. Be prepared to update to a newer electronic version when necessary. And a while ago in the government, I I read something to the effect of that they are looking for people to be proactive in trying to make sure that as new formats come out, and even as new formats are in development, they're noted so that you understand what you need to do to maintain those permanent records or long-time records, 50 years, 75 years, 100 years, that you either have the equipment to continue to access those electronic records, or they're upgraded to a newer version, so you can still read them. Obviously, physical paper records are based on humidity, temperature, and some other things. You definitely need to make sure with paper records that you're following the proper procedures so that you preserve them over the same period of time that they're supposed to be retained. All right. We got about 7 minutes, 8 minutes, so let's switch gears. It's time to talk about you and your role within records management. Now, I went to what is now Gemini, was Bard AI, and I said, I want to encourage someone to join records management. I want them to join the profession that I'm in, so write something really positive. And it did, and some of it I think is really corny, but so Bard AI said, launch your career as a guardian of records. Records management is a growing field where you'll play a vital role in keeping organizations functional, secure, and compliant. You'll develop valuable organizational skills. You'll become a records whiz. I would never call anybody a records whiz. Thank you very much. And keep your records accessible when they're needed. It's a chance to make a real difference in how businesses operate, all while building a rewarding and in-demand career. And I will agree with the last sentence. It is a rewarding career, and it is an in-demand career. That was written by artificial intelligence. If you wanted to listen to me, I will tell you that I love records management. There's just something about making sure that we identify all of what are the records and the information that we have to retain and put retention to them. We apply the life cycle. We make it happen. We work with our whole organizations. We're a huge team. And we make it happen. And I love this profession, and I've been in it for over 30 years, and I plan on being here forever. So that's that one. But I encourage anybody to, if you're just starting out in records management, you're not sure where you want to go or what you want to do, give it a chance, because to me, it's a very satisfying profession, and I can make a career out of it. Okay, I'll make this real quick. Everybody's got a story. What's your story? When I was doing Inside the Records Room, anytime we did an interview, we started the interview with the same question. How did you get involved in records management? And nobody, for 12 years or 13 years, nobody ever came out and said, I got out of high school, I went to college, I studied records management, I got my degree, I came out and I started running records programs. Never. Now, there are advanced degrees now, like master's degrees, that are out there for records management or information management and information governance. I'm not sure about anything in bachelor's yet. There are some certificate programs, and then there's some certifications. But everybody has their own story, and here's mine. I walked in with my boss to run the purchasing department of Commerce Bank. And we were off-site in a warehouse because we delivered some of the things that we ordered. It's 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. So before my boss left, he said, hey, come with me. I got to show you something. And usually when somebody says, I have to show you something, that's not really a good thing. But he walked me through the door into the warehouse, and there was 10,000 square feet of unstructured, unmanaged records. Boxes as far as you could see, file folders on shelves. The one thing that they did have, the 10,000 square feet, was mezzanine in, racked in, fire suppression systems. Everything we used to store the records on was top notch. It was first rate, but they had no program. And he handed me a book and he says, you're running the records program and we don't have one right now, so you have to create it. And that was the first day of the best day that I have ever had when it comes to understanding what I wanted my career to be. And I truly mean that. Some of you may not have that same fascination as I do. I get it. It's okay. But we all have our stories. So I want you to think about yours. Because when you walk up to somebody, whether it be at an ARMA event or AIM or a conference, whatever it may be, have that little story. How did you get involved in records management? Where do you want to go? Little funny things that you did. I got plenty of funny things. We just can't tell them all today. All right. When I first got involved, you were a clerk. You might have been an admin, or you were a manager, but you were only in the records department. Where now, if you're involved in records management, you can be within a lot of areas of a company. You can see them here: compliance or information governance or information technology, etc., all the way down this page. There are so many different areas of an organization that rely on records management expertise, and you can be in any of them. So you're not going to be pigeonholed. If you want to be in a records management department, feel free, plenty of room. Jump in, jump in the pool with us. We're all here. But if you want to be in a different area, you want to specialize. Maybe you want to specialize in privacy. Maybe you want to specialize in security. You can do that. The options are there for you. When I first started, there was a clerk, there might have been an admin, and there was a manager. As you can see here, there are tons of positions. Now, in the smaller companies, maybe not. I know in some companies, there's a person managing the records, and that's it. That's how small they are. So they're not going to have all these positions. If they're in a company that has a lot of growth, maybe down the road they can, but you get into larger companies, you can see all these positions here, including the larger companies, where now even C-suite positions are coming up, whether it be a chief records officer, chief data officer, et cetera, all the way around that wheel that you see. There are senior positions that are coming around. So if you want to make a career out of records management, and I encourage you to take a look, join me, because again, like I said, I am so happy that one day happened. And I think that you could really, enjoy this as well. There's a lot of associations and networking in records management. You can see all the organizations here. There isn't all of them. There are plenty more. And me being partially OCD, I did want 2 more, so I completed the bottom row. There's 4, 4, and 2, and that kind of gets me. I didn't have the last 2, but there's a lot of different organizations and associations out there, which you can join. Some of them are industry specific, like AHIMA, it's medical records, that type of thing. NAGAR, government. So NIRM is nuclear. But plenty of options for you to meet people. Okay, AIEF, IG Guru, industry groups. And a lot of the associations, they have industry groups. And Rich, I know we're running long. And for those of you that have to cut off at 3, I get it. There is a little bit more. We are recording this, so if you want to come, if you can't stay and you got to jump off, I get it. You could always listen to the very end of the recording, but I do want to capture all this in one class. In a lot of associations, they have industry groups. So whether you're in financial, insurance, etc., you have industry groups you can join. So you have your peers that you can talk to. The AIEF is the Army International Educational Foundation. The website is armaedfoundation.org. It's too late now, but there are some scholarships that are available. If you're doing certifications, you can apply for reimbursement, as well as college scholarships. If you hit them at the appropriate time when they're offered, you can apply for a scholarship reimbursement for going for a college scholarship. And IG Guru. There's an individual out there, and I won't pronounce his last name because I mispronounce it. His first name is Andrew. The man has 32 or 33 initials after his name because he has that many certifications. He's that good. He's like a brother from another mother to me. And he runs igguru.net. igguru.net is a great source of news information, current news items out there that you can read and educate yourself with. And there's also message boards out there. Excuse me, or used to be. I hope there still is. I've been out there a little while. But there's message boards out there where you can communicate with your peers. So you definitely have a ton of networking opportunities. And I'll say it one last time before we get to the close of this program. Records management is a family. I've been in a lot of different professions. None of them has been more of a family than records management to me. And I don't think anyone could be. So if you want to get into a career and a profession where you've got a lot of people you can talk to, then records management is it. And I encourage you to do so. All right, congratulations. You've completed class 1. Let's recap what we've learned. We told you what IDEA is all about. We talked about the evolution of records management, records and information management, and information governance. We've answered what determines if something is a record. We've given you information to answer the question, what is the purpose of records management? We talked about the life cycle. Where should records management report in an organization? Joining the world of records management and networking in records management. We covered a lot here today in class 1, including going over what it was all about, as this is our first class. And again, thank you for joining us on the inaugural class 1 of IDEA. Class 2, we'll talk about the tools you'll need and use in records. You can see the whole list there. We'll cover that in Class 2. Another radio show I did before, actually Inside the Records Room, because I'm a certified racquetball instructor, I did Racquetball Roundtable, and we always gave what we called a Extreme Championship performance tip. I'll do that at the end of every class here. We'll just call it a Records Management Extreme Championship performance tip, and it's something that I can't stress more. Records management is not a one-person show. It's a team sport, and whether you think it sounds corny or not, is true. Team stands for together, everyone accomplishes more. And it's true. Working together, you can accomplish way more than you can as one person. You as one person only have 24 hours in a day, but a group of you have the same 24 hours and can work on it together. Okay, so let's finish with the answer to our trivia question. What is the connection between records management and the movie The Wizard of Oz? Okay, well, first, on her way down the yellow brick road, Dorothy encountered the Cowardly Lion, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man. The Scarecrow was upset when he saw fire because he was made of something that could burn. The Tin Man didn't want it to rain because if it rained and him being made of tin, he wouldn't be able to move. Also, the Scarecrow was worried about being told he didn't have a brain, so we need to worry about education. And the lion was considered cowardly. So he needed to have the courage, or as they said, and I'll try to imitate it as best I can from that movie, he had to have courage. That's right, he had to have courage. And the lion got courage, and so can you. But yes, in records management, we're worried about fire. We're worried about water. That affects our records, whether they're paper or electronic. And we need to have the education to make sure that we're running our programs in the appropriate manner. And we have to have the courage to talk to the individuals in our organization and get their buy-in to help us run the records management program as efficiently as we possibly can. The second answer is Dorothy was told to go down the yellow brick road and get to the land of Oz, where there was a great and powerful Oz that could solve all of her problems. And anyone who's watched The Wizard of Oz knows there was no great and powerful Oz. There was just a man behind a curtain. And the same thing is true with records management. There is no one solution to manage your program that works for everybody. Now, I will tell you, software packages are getting better, and they are addressing a lot of the areas that are your concerns. But there's not one that works for everybody. There was no great and powerful Oz for Dorothy. There is no great and powerful Oz for you in records management. There are solutions. You just have to do your research and find them. And finally, I had the source for this because I found this years ago. And when I put this presentation together, I couldn't find the source. What I was told and had the source for was that the script writer for The Wizard of Oz couldn't figure out what to call the land that Dorothy had to go to. And what he ended up doing was he looked over at the filing cabinet in his office, and the bottom drawer went from O to Z. Hence, the land of Oz was born. I have to call it a rumor today because I can't find the source of how I know that is a fact. But it's an awesome one, regardless of whether it's a rumor or a fact, and I'm taking it as a fact. And that's how The Wizard of Oz is actually a movie about records management. All right. I want you to thank you for joining us today. I want you to join us for our next class. It's class 2, the tools you'll need and use. That's October 7th, 2 p.m. From now until then, look for an email in your inbox as soon as this recording is available on our website for you to listen to as a recording. An email will go out. You'll have an opportunity to listen to the parts you missed, or if you didn't get to listen to the original, you can listen to the recording in any way. But once again, I want to thank you for attending today's class. Anybody that wants to reach out to me, if you've got comments, suggestions, if you have topics, we pretty much got this semester down, but if you have topics that you want me to talk about in future presentations, whether it be a series or individual, please let me know. raymond.davis@id-llc.com. Love to hear from you, and I hope that we're going to hear from you on Class 2. So for myself, Ray Davis, and my co-host, Rich Slaughter, thank you much for tuning in today, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Take care.